Alright, welcome back. So we'll be looking at DCL, Data Control Language, which is used to administer security for our database. So here we are again in the 100 Days IT Challenge database. Okay, once we expand it, we got our tables, database diagrams, and so on. Right now, we're not going to look at the tables, we need to look at security. So under security, you can see a few folders in here. We will focus on users, roles, maybe schemas. Let's check out the schemas. Right now, these are all the default schemas that are created when you use Microsoft SQL Server. There's nothing here that we've created. If we need to create a schema, it's very easy. We can go ahead and say create. Better for us to use caps. Create, let's make this bigger. And use the keyword schema and provide a name. So let's say 2024 underscore schema. And with that, we should be able to create a schema. Right now we have everything is highlighted. That's because we had batch mode activated. So now we should be good to go. All right. So again, go to query and SQL command mode, batch, and we should be good. So if we execute this, incorrect syntax, what am I missing? Okay, obviously the schema cannot start with a number. That's good. So we will make it easy and give ourselves DK schema. That should work just fine. So execute and it's good. So remember, names of objects cannot start with numbers. This was a very bad idea to have 100 days as the name of our database, but that's okay. Now we should be able to see our schema if we refresh it. Remember, we talked about refreshing just the folder, and here we are. That's our schema. Now let's go on to roles. The roles as well, database roles, are just the ones that come with the database. We also have applications that might be connecting to our database. We don't have any roles yet. We don't have any applications connecting to it. And we also have users. Not any new users yet. So that's where we will be focusing on. On the other hand, if you check out the test database, we made some changes to it offline. I can also go ahead and check out the security. Under security, if you look at users, oh, there you go. We got Eva, Jane Doe, and Quentin. There's some users that have been added. How did that happen? I'll show you how to do that. Again, roles, we will have some new roles. BI, data analyst, architect, admin, engineer, scientist, those were all added using DDL, okay? But then schemas also, we just saw how we can create a schema similar to what. So how did we create those roles and get them, users, get them assigned? I'm going to switch over to the script that I used and try to break it down. So first, what are roles? We're going to use role-based access control, which is very good for compliance and also setting a standard to be able to make your database secure. So roles actually tie into specific job functions. For instance, data architect, DBA, engineer, analyst, BI analyst, and data scientist. That's how you go ahead and create roles using data definition language. Also, if you don't have a login, you can create a login. Okay, make sure it's unique. Also add a password for security reasons. Make sure your password is good, not as generic as this. But this is for demonstration purposes only. Sometimes you might be using a login that comes in with the system, maybe a Windows login or systems login or domain login. So that might be used and you might not need to create that. Once you have those prerequisites, the role and the login created for you earlier or in existence already, you can now use the keyword use to point to your particular database. Regardless of where you are in the system, it's going to make sure you're in the right database, which you can always switch to a different database and so on. So within that database, we want to create a user. Okay, so if we create a user, we need to tie in that user to the login, which is either in existence or we created. So best practice, you might want your user and the login to be the same, or maybe you might want to use a prefix or a suffix to differentiate the login and the user. Now coming into DCL, the data control language, we now use keywords like grant to be able to grant a permission. A permission could be a select permission to read the database, an insert permission to be able to add content to the database, an update permission, a delete permission, and so on. Okay, so that permission gets granted on a particular structure. In this case, we are granting it on the artist table, which we do have in here. Let's expand those tables. We have an artist table. Nope, we do not have an artist table. We have a teacher table. So I need to change this to teacher. since we're going to be executing it in 100 days. So let's switch this and say 100 days. You also have a drop down available for you. Oops, that's not good. 100 days. It's doing that in square brackets, so it doesn't trust my typing. Yes, so you can add one or multiple roles. You can see that we added multiple roles in this case. So we are allowing the data analyst and BI analyst to be able to read information from the teacher table. Likewise, we are making sure the data engineer can not only read but also modify the album. We don't want them to delete anything, otherwise we'll go ahead and add the delete permission. In some cases, you might want to update the permissions by removing them. As you see on line 27, we use the revoke keyword to remove this update feature or update permission from the track. So you want to make sure that the data engineer cannot update any information in the track table, which you can see right there. Once you've used the grant and revoke features or grant and revoke keywords for your permissions, unfortunately, you cannot also use the grant and revoke keywords to make changes to the users and their roles. Make sure you remember that, because that's a simple mistake that most people do. Instead, we use DML, data modification language, an alter keyword. We need to alter the role for data analyst by adding a member. The same for data scientist, we add another member, and again for data analyst, we add a member. Unfortunately, we cannot add the members using commas. It's going to give us an error. So you have to actually go ahead and do it one after the other, otherwise this will error out. So let's undo that. It would be better to use a stored procedure. There are stored procedures that come built in the system, and it's a little bit advanced for a beginner, but we'll look at stored procedures in a separate video. Drop me a message at the bottom and I'll go ahead and spend some time on that. All right. So just like you assign roles or assign users to roles, you can also unassign users to particular roles. So for instance, we want to change the data analyst role and drop, that's a keyword that we're using in this case, drop Jane Doe from that role. Also, you might want to use very, very important, very powerful keyword called deny. Okay, so in using deny, we explicitly override permissions to a particular person. So we might decide and say, hey, grant select on playlist to all our data analysts, but make sure you deny it for a particular person. Okay, right now we already removed Jane Doe from data analyst, so it doesn't matter, but in future, you might want to use a particular deny keyword to explicitly, because deny is more powerful than grant. It overrides that particular command. Also notice that a particular user could be present in multiple roles. So you could be a data analyst role, you could also be a team member role, you can also be a manager role, and so on and so forth. Also, you can use this deny keyword again to protect particular columns from being changed. For instance, we are going to say do not update the unit price in the track. So if you check out your track table, it has a unit price column. You don't want that price to be changed by the data analyst, so it prevents that from happening. You might also use something as simple as deny, making sure that your sales manager cannot view the employee's salary. This is going to give us an error because I don't have an employees table in here and a salary column in there, so that's why I'm going to comment that out so it doesn't execute. Once this is all good to go, we can now execute it, and you'll see those changes affected within our security folder for 100 days. And that should be it for DCL. So how do we execute it? You can use the execute keyword or the execute button or F5 on your keyboard as it shows you in the shortcut in parentheses. So let's execute that. And it looks like we are having issues. On line 8, nope, on line 2, data architect already exists in the current database. All right, that's because I changed my database at the end. So I need to first of all switch my database all the way to the beginning. Awesome. So we want to use that database and not, I think it was looking at the one, instead of the 100 days IT, it was looking at the test database. So let's expand this now, make sure we are in 100 days and it's definitely using that database. Now, one more time, let's try this. Yay. Server principal already exists. Okay, so we didn't need to create that. So again, the user login did not need to be created because it already exists. So it skipped that, but everything else was completed. So let's go into our security and refresh it once again so that we can see our changes. Refresh that. And on the users, you can now see our users for 100 days have been updated. Our roles have also been updated, and we're good to go. The schema, we manually did that earlier. We use DK schema, and that's good. So make sure you pay very close attention to how you use the deny, keyword, and so on and so forth. That's about it for now. Catch you on the next video. Awesome. Oh.